This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by DigitalOcean and by Ting. Go to last.ting.com and save $25 off your first device or your first month of service. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 313. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Hey, Matt. Welcome to lucky episode 313.
313 already.
You ready for me to tell folks about the big show today?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, coming up on this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, can you use Arch Linux to build the perfect home server? Well, actually, we just got done building a couple of Arch servers here at the new Jupiter Broadcasting Studios. I'm going to tell you about our setup and why I think, depending on how you do it, and if you follow my advice, I believe Arch could actually be the perfect home server. I know, Arch server?
Wow.
Home?
Holy.
Just stick with us. I think you might be impressed. I know, it's crazy. And then in the news segment, did you hear about Canonical, a.k.a. Mr. Shuttleworth, just rocking the OpenStack conference this week? Like,
really
a couple of big announcements. Kind of owned the show there, and we're going to cover that. Plus, we've got some really interesting Mint news we're going to discuss and a few other items in the news segment. And then in the feedback segment, we've got a couple of questions about Btrfs. We're going to follow up on those, plus that poll we had from last week, if you use Btrfs, which totally blew me away. And we've got a couple of questions regarding home, or at least one question regarding home servers. But first, Matt, if like that shenanigans wasn't enough,
not even close. We got to have that one other thing.
it's our picks.
Yes.
And our Runs Linux pick this week is awesome because I, first of all, love space exploration, totally love going to Mars.
Yep.
If you could somehow combine those things with Linux, now I'm all on board. Well, guess what? The ExoMars mission, which is a joint mission between, I believe, the European Union and the Russian Federation and NASA at some point, to build a brand new Mars rover. Now, this Mars rover, unlike the other ones that have gone there for certain types of evidence, is specifically going to go there to detect life. And Matt, as you might have guessed, the whole mission runs Linux.
Wow.
It's a mystery that Europe's new mission, ExoMars, is ready to solve. By 2016, it will have a satellite in orbit around Mars designed to test for methane. And by 2018, this rover will be rolling around the red planet.
Now watch for it, Matt. Keep your eyes peeled. Here it comes.
The rover's drill will be able to collect samples 2 meters beneath the surface.
Oh, what's that right
This
there?
will be the
Unity.
first mission to set out with the direct...
So on this shot, we can clearly see they're using Ubuntu Unity here. It looks like a slightly older version of Ubuntu. But what I love is they also have this Logitech joystick hooked up to the Ubuntu machine, and that's actually what's controlling the rover. And you can see it. It's actually kind of a cool rover.
You know, I keep expecting to see a Steam icon down there a little further.
intention of finding signs of life, now and in the past.
If you think your pickup truck is cool because it has 4x4 traction, well, this guy has 6x6x6. Every wheel can rotate, turn left or right, and then there is an extra motor that allows a knee to swivel forwards and backwards. We can move and turn. We can also crab. This is very important if you want to image a rock. And you don't want to go back and forth a million times. You just crab in front of a rock. We can command it to not use the wheels as wheels, but to lift them up and use them as feet.
Isn't that amazing?
That is incredible.
So that's the new ExoMars mission. It's they're working on it right now, and it's pretty neat. And it runs Linux.
One thing I'm wondering is when, and this is a legitimate concern. I mean, I'm making a crack about it, but it's true. You know, we're going to go bring some random microbes from Mars. You know,
Sure.
it may or may not be the pathogen that kills us all. You know, that's okay.
Well, we're just going there right now. We're not bringing anything back.
Okay, because I'm waiting for that to happen and then us to become some
No,
Saturday morning
if
movie.
anything, don't worry. Set your fears aside, Matt, because if anything, we're sending our bugs, our germs to Mars. And let me tell you, that is a
that's
good
awesome.
thing.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I don't think they have Linux on Mars.
No.
And I don't know what they're running, but it very likely is proprietary. Number 2, there is undoubtedly a massive Mars army under the surface of Mars, and by sending our bugs there, we will defeat them preemptively. So that way, when the great Mars-Earth war finally occurs, they'll have had substantial losses, and it's all thanks to Linux-powered rovers.
I love that. It's better to have a bug report than a all-out war.
Wow,
So,
nice. That's a good one, Matt.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me tell you about something else that's powered by Linux. That's our first sponsor this week, and that is the great folks over at DigitalOcean. What is DigitalOcean? DigitalOcean is simple cloud hosting dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. Most users get started in about 55 seconds. However, our users out there can get started in, well, I think, I'm trying to remember on Twitter, I think the latest I saw was...
like 42 seconds or something?
Yeah, it was like 42 seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ridiculously fast.
So, here, let me show you the way you spin up a DigitalOcean droplet because it's pretty cool. So right here, we're logged into my DigitalOcean account, and let's give me a host name, Matt. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. LAS, Happy Hour.
Happy Hour. I like that. All right, LAS Happy Hour. Hey, I think you just came up with a good after show. Now, I was actually seriously thinking. I was looking at the pricing of this. Even if I got one of their bigger rigs with like 3 terabytes of space, that's like cheaper than the Dropbox Professional.
Oh yeah, it legitimately is. I mean, it really helps you to evaluate what you're doing with your data.
You could. We're going to talk about our app pick here in a minute. You could use one of our app picks to sync up to your own private DigitalOcean droplet. You could use Bittorrent Sync. There's also the 2 terabyte, which is $10 a month. But here's what's great. If you go over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code LASTMay, you can get a $10 credit. You can try out that $5 rig just to see if it works for you for 2 months for absolutely free when you use the promo code LASTMay. And DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, and Amsterdam. Plus, that control panel of theirs, as you can see, I mean, we're looking at it right here, right now. This is, so after you choose the server, you choose your location. So let's say I wanted to go San Francisco.
And I love how it's all like just right there.
Boom, boom,
it's
boom,
easy.
right?
I mean, it's so easy.
And then let's say, because I'm a masochist, I wanted to go with a Fedora server, right? And I'm going to go Fedora 20 because that's a pretty good release. And I can enable VirtIO, I can enable backups, I create Droplet, and I'm done. I've just deployed a Fedora 20 server. So think about that. Think about how intuitive this control panel is. But what is awesome is all of this functionality can be replicated on your own on a larger scale with their straightforward API. That's one of the things that really makes DigitalOcean powerful is they have a big community that's developing up around them. They have this powerful API. So you're seeing applications show up that make your job easier, but you could also just script it yourself. And all of that is riding on top of SSD drives with tier 1 bandwidth in some of the best data centers around the world. So DigitalOcean figured this all out. They could use KVM to get their density up to an efficient level where they can get the prices at the right point that are palatable to customers, but yet they're still wrapping it with their incredible intuitive control panel. These SSD drives, that tier 1 bandwidth, it's so awesome to see when you leverage your business on Linux technologies, what you can accomplish. So go over to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code LASTMay when you check out and get a $10 credit. That way you can try a DigitalOcean droplet for 2 months for absolutely free. You can use this to deploy something for your backend infrastructure or just to train yourself up on some sysadmin skills or whatever it might be. It's a great way to go or build your own private cloud. DigitalOcean.com, use promo code LASTMay.
Nice.
Okay, Matt, we got a couple of things to cover in the pick segment here. Now, before we get to the sync thing that I teased, I want to talk about a program that, you know, I know you're doing Geek in the Gamer.
Yeah.
Have you considered doing it live?
I have. It's, you know, people think we're bad recorded. Boy, wow, you know.
I know,
because as long as I can disclaim it, but it would be interesting because there's a lot of
people love
stuff.
Man.
Yeah,
no, they would love to see it. I wanted to. So about a month ago, I talked about an app you could use to stream to different services.
Sure.
This app is a little more focused, a little easier to use, not quite as flexible, but it's also brand new, so that they might add the flexibility later. It's called Cast Awesome.
I like the name.
Yeah, it's simple live streaming for Linux, and all you do is you use the application. I'll launch it here in a second to show it to you. You define the area on your screen you want to stream. It could be full screen or just a box.
Sure.
And you choose the service. You enter in your credentials or your API key. You click Start, and it's streaming. It's really that easy. So I have it installed. I don't have it. That's right. I reinstalled last night.
Oh, right.
I don't have it installed. But here, I'll show you the screenshot of it. So you can this is exactly what it looks like. So you can see right here. You choose your streaming service. You see right, twitch.tv is the default.
Oh, that's great, because a lot of people use Twitch.
You can also stream directly to YouTube. If your YouTube account supports that, you put in your bit rate right there. You also will, if you're doing twitch.tv, will have to supply your API key, which you can find in your Twitch profile account or your Ustream profile account. In my case, because I have an old Justin TV account, it actually live streams to justin.tv, which is fine with me. And I put that in there, and I was streaming my desktop really easily.
I mean, I love the fact that it's like it's all pull down. It's like you really can't. I mean,
you can't mess it up.
You really can't.
And it's using AVConf, which is a great tool. It's and using libav and as well as FFmpeg as the back end stuff. So it's all using the technologies that you could script yourself, or the application we showed you a couple of weeks ago that kind of builds a script for you. This is sort of one more layer on top of that. This isn't something you're going to use for like a professional production, but this is something like if you just want to share a gaming experience on Twitch.tv, or you want to do a screencast, or even if you're like somebody's stuck and you need to show them how to do something, you could fire up Cast Awesome, stream it to your Justin or Ustream, actually I think it just does Twitch and Justin and YouTube. You could stream it to, and also Hitbox. You could stream it to one of those and be like, hey, go to this URL. I will show you how to do this. Just watch this stream.
Oh, wow. That could be really useful.
Yeah, it's so easy. It could even be used as like here's the link in an IRC chat room. Click this link, noob. Watch me do this live, noob. Ask your questions as I'm doing it, and I'll solve your problem. So I could see some potentials for it, and also, of course, for the gaming aspect as well.
Definitely. No, it sounds like it's really capable.
Cast Awesome, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Now, our weekly spotlight this week is something we're going to go into more detail during the server segment coming up later in the show. I've got it installed, and I'll give you a demo then. But I wanted to pull it out from our main segment and give it its own spot because I didn't want it to get lost in all the other cool stuff we're going to be talking about.
Right.
So it is called Syncthing, and it is a Dropbox competitor that for example, our subreddit has been talking a lot about lately. Syncthing has designs to replace Dropbox or Bittorrent Sync with something that is completely open source top to bottom, totally decentralized, and in a lot of ways like Bittorrent Sync, slightly different, which I'll show you more in the other segment. And it's cross-platform for Mac, Windows, and Linux. And
I like that.
Also available now for Android. Don't know about iOS.
Don't care.
If
it does Android, I'm good. Yeah.
And it works a little bit differently, but it is essentially, at this point, it's early days, but at this point, it's great, I would say, for LAN syncing. If you just have if you just have some machines, or maybe up to a DigitalOcean droplet, something where you have direct control over it, it's really good for that right now. I'm not so sure about wide-scale public sharing.
Right.
I think they maybe need to add a few features for that, but I love that it's all fully open. The protocol, the client software, it's all fully open. It's encrypted. Cool. It's easy to use. The UI is pretty good. Not so good on Android because it's essentially just a reimplementation of the web UI on Android. And it's also available for BSD. So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, you can get syncing right now with Syncthing. And I would say at this stage, it's great for LAN. It'd be also, if you can correspond with the folks that you want to sync with, it'll work well for that. Like if you can give them a key and they can send you back their key and you guys can link up, it'll work. BitTorrent Sync right now allows you to just say, here's a key, just stick this in your client, and the rest all takes care of itself.
Right.
Syncthing isn't quite there yet, but it's really close. So for a business, a LAN, a home, maybe like between two locations, something like that.
Exactly.
I think Syncthing is there. Development is happening rapidly. It's available in the Arch repo if you are, at least in the AUR. If you're on Arch, there's PPAs for other distros or RPMs and all those kinds of
good stuff. Yeah, I love the fact that it's a nice alternative, and I think as it continues to develop, it's going to be something to keep an eye on.
Syncthing.net, SYNC thing.net. It has designs to kill BitTorrent Sync with something fully open. And hey, even if it doesn't kill BitTorrent Sync, which, I mean, BitTorrent Sync has a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah, it does.
Wouldn't it be great if Syncthing just put a little bit of pressure on BitTorrent Sync to maybe open things up a bit more?
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So check it out, give it an install, and leave us a feedback in the Linux Action Show subreddit thread. Oh, what? You didn't know that we do a subreddit thread for every episode of the Linux Action Show where you can give us feedback just for this episode? Because we do. Over at linuxactionshow.reddit.com, you'll find a link in there for episode 313, and I'd love to hear your experiences with Syncthing if you're already running it or if you try it out after this episode. So leave a comment in there.
Share your thoughts, guys.
Yeah. All right, Matt, let's do the news.
It's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com, last.ting.com, Matt, mobile that makes sense, my mobile service provider, and boom, Matt's mobile service provider. We both got, he has the Note 2, I got the Nexus 5, love these devices, never, ever ever have been more happy with Ting. I wasn't quite sure what it would be like once we switched up to a permanent full use 2 devices.
Right.
It has been so awesome. And as a small business owner who has a tight budget, I really appreciate Ting. But even as an individual, you can save a ton of money by switching to Ting. Why? Well, first of all, you only pay for what you use. Flat $6 a month. Your usage is just what you pay. They take your minutes, your messages, your megabytes, add them all up, whatever bucket you fall into, that's what you're going to pay, plus your applicable taxes. And there's no early termination fee. There's no contract to speak of at all. But the other thing that's great about Ting is once you become a customer and you're saving money, what really sticks with you like a good plate of ribs is the Ting dashboard. It's really well done. It adheres to web standards. It has a design philosophy throughout the entire interface, and it's extremely powerful. And the other great thing about Ting is they love to stay up to date on some of the greatest devices. You can check their blog over at ting.com/blog, but do me a solid. First, before you go to ting.com/blog, I mean, that's a great place to go,
yes,
but start your trip by going to last.ting.com. That tells them you heard about it right here on Linux Action Show and gets you $25 off your first device. And they got some brand new devices, Matt. So check out.
Tiny.
They just added, and you know me, the phone lust begins.
Oh boy.
The brand new HTC One M8, the iteration to my favorite phone of all time, is there. It's available now. You can buy that from Ting unlocked. They also added the Galaxy S5, and they've got some great mid-range and entry-level phones if you're on a budget and you need something in the sub $100 category that still has a camera and can do texting. They've got some great devices for that. Now think about that. A sub $100 device that you pay a flat $6 a month for that's only billed on your usage with no contract and no early termination fee. Are you starting to get it? Are you getting it?
Gets in it.
Last.ting.com.
Oh, no.
Go check them out. See what I've been talking about. And once you get in, you'll appreciate the fact that they have no-hold customer service. You just call them at 1-855-TING-FTW. Anytime between, about 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern, and a real Canadian answers the phone. And every plan includes hotspot and tethering, picture messaging, caller ID, text messaging. You want hotspot? You want tethering? Bob's your uncle. You just go into your Android settings like Google intended it. You turn on the hotspot, and guess what? This just became a Wi-Fi access point, and they've been adding more LTE areas than any other cellular provider throughout the last year. So the area is expanding like crazy. Tri-band LTE is becoming available in more cities all over the U.S. So go over to last.ting.com, and a really big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show.
Loving those guys.
Absolutely. All right, Matt, let's start with Ubuntu's big week because it was big. They got the whole industry talking at the OpenStack conference, the 2014 edition. There were over 506 active OpenStack deployments with 34% running with companies that employ more than 1,000 people now. So OpenStack is starting to get some traction. So, of course, they're having industry meetings. There was more than 5,000 people at the OpenStack conference, and about 1,700 people filled out a survey that kind of drilled into some of their different areas.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yes, and Ubuntu stood out big time from the companies surveyed. People are using Ubuntu and OpenStack deployments at a much higher rate than any other Linux distribution. It is essentially completely and absolutely fair to call Ubuntu dominant in these surveys. And the number one reason is they wanted to avoid vendor lock-in. These are the business drivers.
Okay.
Then secondary was cost savings. So interesting that cost savings wasn't number one.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting.
Operational efficiency is
I
number
like
3.
the fact that the number one is, in fact, avoiding vendor
lock-in.
Worse.
However, Red Hat made a strong showing at the OpenStack conference, obviously indicating they're getting ready to take this crown back. And what's interesting is OpenStack, in a lot of ways, has been seen by folks as sort of a reset of the data center, because Red Hat is unquestionably dominant in the overall Linux deployment in the data center. However, OpenStack is... it's a bit of this beast that allows you to have an entire, stack to target as a developer. And that could include multiple machines of different functionality and configurations. And in those cases, when you do an all-inclusive product like that, Ubuntu is totally dominating, and those are becoming even more and more popular, which is why at the conference, Mark Shuttleworth, maybe taking a page from Steve Jobs' book, unveiled the Ubuntu Orange Box. And we talked a little bit about this on Linux Unplugged. This is a monster. It contains 10 Intel NUCs that have been extracted from their Intel NUC case. They're mounted directly on the inside of this case with aluminum heat sinks built in and cooling on the side. There is a single fan in the back. It runs Ubuntu 14.04, and here is the video of Mark Shuttleworth introducing it.
Okay.
And this is kind of a great moment for Mark right here.
You may have spotted these on our booth. Come and have a look at them. But Intel also makes these very cool microservers. And we wondered what it would be like if we had 10 of them in a box. And so here we have the orange boxes.
So there's the Ubuntu orange box.
Inside each of those are 10 Intel microservers with Juju and Maz. And so you can do anything with those boxes. They're an amazing way to just master distributed systems. We're using them for Jumpstart training. Our Jumpstart program now has a training dimension for 10K plus travel and accommodation. We'll come to your offices with an orange box. We'll spend 2 days training you to master OpenStack, build it in different ways, as many different ways as you like, combining components from those different vendors in oil. And once you've mastered it, we'll leave that box with you for 2 weeks so that you can figure out exactly what you want to do with it. Most people at that stage are ready to go and build their own OpenStack clouds. They've figured out everything that they need to make OpenStack exactly what they want it to be.
Now, he's talking about it from a training angle there, but I could actually see the use of like a testing and development angle. Like, here's your...
Right.
When you have 10 NUCs, and maybe you only need 5 NUCs, maybe you need all 10 or whatever it is, you could have your database server, your web front end, your varnish cache. I mean, you could essentially build the entire end product in this little mobile case that you could bring to different places for demos or for development. I mean, you could even have like an important developer bring it home for the weekend when he's working on a project.
Or something occurs to me, and regardless of which distribution you happen to go with, you have a rural environment, say a school, that doesn't really have outside access to the internet.
Right.
But you want to have that type of inclusive experience with Moodle and all these other things built in.
Yeah, you
Drop
could
it in.
You
boom,
could essentially
done.
have it is a cloud in a box.
Yeah, it's a cloud in a box. So you then have an intranet of things in your realm right there in a box. I like that.
Here's the specs. We talked a little bit more about this on Linux Unplugged, so I'll just bust through this really quick. These are the Ivy Bridge Intel NUCs. They have i5 3427U CPUs.
Yeah.
So those are the nice i5s with all of the virtualization, like the VirtD support and all that stuff. Intel Graphics 4000 in each NUC, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 120 gigabyte SSD in each NUC, gigabit. And then they've done something interesting, is they put in a D-Link 16-port managed gigabit switch that has VLAN tagging support. All of the nodes are internally connected to this D-Link switch. All 10 NUCs in that little orange box are in this D-Link switch. In aggregate, this microcluster effectively fields 40 cores in total, 160 gigabytes of RAM, 1.2 terabytes of solid-state storage, and is connected over an internal gigabit network. One fan cools the entire machine. All the nodes, all the little NUCs in there, are passively cooled, which is pretty neat. And then the main rig, the one controller NUC, Unit 0, Node 0 in this containment, it has a Wi-Fi adapter, so you can share that Wi-Fi connection with all of the NUCs in there. It also has a 2 terabyte attached hard drive, and then they've taken all of the USB ports and they've put them in a hub, which is connected and drilled into the back of the box, as well as an HDMI port, so you can get access to the USB of the individual nodes, and they have 6 gigabit LAN ports on the back of the NUC, which go into that internal switch, which is pretty cool.
That sounds exciting. Yeah, the prospect of it is definitely very cool because I've seen earlier versions of something very similar that was much more expensive, much larger.
Yeah.
You would need like an aircraft carrier to like move it anywhere because it was so huge.
Right.
And so the fact that this is like something a couple guys could pick up easily and move.
We've seen these in like, we've seen those data center crates that are like on the back of a truck. Those are going to be more powerful, but this is sort of even a more reduction of that.
Right.
And what's been interesting here is here at the studio, Rika and I keep coming up with different ways to use NUCs. Like, they're a good budget machine, and they provide enough power. Like that computer right there is running Arch on a NUC. We have another NUC that's going to arrive on Tuesday that's going to do some more driving our video that we're going to put in here. It's like these NUCs are like these perfect little machines for essentially if you have something that just needs multi-core and fast I/O, a NUC can do it, and that's incredible. So that's really neat. Okay, so that's the orange box. That's part of the overall solution. The other thing is they announced what Mark Shuttleworth called the Chuck Norris grade private cloud service.
I like that.
And this is kind of funny. It's Canonical offering essentially a fully managed OpenStack solution where you go to them and you say, You know, you call up Jono. You say, "Hey, Jono, I need this, and then you know, can you give me all this information? And here's all this info and all this kind of stuff." And you give them the specs of what you want, what you're going to be doing, what applications and databases, and all that kind of stuff. And they can actually either fully build it out for you or just manage it for you. Canonical's SVP of Worldwide Sales and Business Development explained that smaller companies have a great deal of trouble holding on to OpenStack talent, architects as they call them. It's not uncommon for a company to go through 3 architects in 6 months because the demand is so high for OpenStack experts. So to help our customers get up to speed on OpenStack, we decided to host a private cloud. And you can put it on your own data center servers. You can put it on the ones they select, I assume. They're calling it your cloud. Here's the catch: $15 per day. $15 per day. Now, this is like you have a sysadmin on call.
Okay, so there's your value added then. Okay.
Yeah. They provide all the software infrastructure tools like Juju and management, all the services you need, 24/7 monitoring and management for $15 a day.
Does that include setup? It's like I come into it, I know nothing. It's like, okay, here, make that happen, guys.
Here's our application. Here's what we need on a back-end infrastructure standpoint, and they build it. So about $450 a month. That's not cheap.
But is it cheaper than paying? I hate to, and people are going to hate me for this, but is it cheaper than hiring someone to do it full time? You know what I mean?
Way cheaper, and it's also almost just as expensive as some dedicated hosting offerings are. So
true.
It's a pretty compelling offer, and so what they're saying is essentially, you want to roll it yourself. You can do everything yourself, completely hands off. You go grab an ISO image, you go choose an OpenStack compatible area, you go deploy on there, have that at HOS. You want to have an orange box where it's all contained in one little unit, you can do that. Or if you know you need to build an application that needs these things and you would like it to be based on Ubuntu, so that way once you've got it all built out and deployed, it's easy to hand over to another person to work on. We can do everything from the spin up to the daily management when you're ready for it, and it's a pretty compelling offering, I think, to help them keep their OpenStack momentum. And what we have developing here is really interesting competition between Canonical and Red Hat, because this server space, that's Red Hat's bag.
Well, and I think what they did differently, and this is one thing that I will give them props on, is, as we all know, Red Hat pretty much owns the data center. That's their playground. You know, you're coming into that space. It's with Red Hat. You're going to be dealing with Red Hat head on. The fact that they went in and came up with something that was very custom, very portable, and something that can be dropped in anywhere. I think they're creating a niche, or niche, depending on how you pronounce it. Niche. That they can take and work with. I think that's pretty fascinating that they were able to do that. Love or hate, Canonical. I think at the end of the day, that was smart. It was compelling, a smart move, right? Because usually I'm pretty hard on them for not making great marketing moves. This was one of the good ones.
You ready for the ninja jab? Here's the ninja jab in this whole thing.
Kung Fu grip.
Canonical has this Juju, which is a DevOps tool that it sort of sits on top of a lot of management frameworks like Puppet and whatnot, and just kind of lets you at a high level deploy services and things like that.
Right.
It once you get it working, it's pretty neat. But its limiting factor has always been, you got to be an Ubuntu shop. You got to be an Ubuntu shop to use this. And then if you want to manage other systems, you have to use their tools or use tools that sit below Juju. Well, guess what? Canonical announced that Juju is going to be moved over to CentOS, obviously Red Hat Enterprise Linux as well, and Windows.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and in fact,
wow,
your buddy here, Stephen J. Vangerhogen Nichols, nice guy. I just like that.
Yeah, no, Stephen's good.
It's hard. He says it's hard to shock an audience at a technical conference, but Mark Shuttleworth, founder of Ubuntu Linux and its parent company Canonical, managed to do it several times in the OpenStack Summit keynote. And mainly, the big shocker is that Juju is going to become available to Red Hat, CentOS, and Microsoft Hyper-V and Windows Server 2012 for management. He writes it up as, for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting Juju, it's a cloud DevOps program that works at a higher level than Puppet or Chef or Salt. Those programs automate server configurations by sending virtual cloud servers so that each instance runs identical software configuration. Juju works above them. It's meant to manage surfaces, not machines. That's a little hard to follow, but it's essentially it.
Well, I think it kind of touches on the meat and potatoes of it.
So there you go. That's the OpenStack Summit wrap up. There was a lot of things that happened there, but I noticed from afar. Obviously, we didn't go to the summit, but I noticed from afar those things were getting a lot of traction, and we've been pretty critical of some of the actions Canonical's taking. But when it comes to the cloud stuff,
they've really been nailing it.
Yeah,
they still need massive work on the consumer side, but they're doing really good on this cloud stuff. So that's cool.
Let's talk about the consumer side really really quick before we totally get out of Ubuntu territory and move off.
Yes.
We have been worrying, specifically me, but both of us have worried, like, when they roll out this new Ubuntu Unity 8
Right.
that has, been rewritten in Qt and potentially has applications that are meant to span mobile and desktop, and what's that going to look like? Is it going to
break?
Is it going to ruin, like, the Ubuntu desktop for average users? And a time when Steam is taking off and user adoption seems super organic. We just played a video of them using Ubuntu to control the Mars rover, right?
That was cool.
It's just happening everywhere on its own, especially with Windows XP coming to an end. However, it seems to be that discussions are beginning now in the development mailing list that indicate to me that they might be taking a very rational and reasonable approach to deploying Unity 8 for new installations, especially during development day. So this is an article over at OMG Ubuntu. Here's the headline: Ubuntu devs propose creating a separate Unity 8 desktop flavor.
Oh.
A separate spin, essentially, of Ubuntu to aid in development. Here is a little bit of the details. Developer Ian Lane, who outlined the proposal on the team's mailing list, says the addition of such a spin would allow developers and enthusiasts, that's us,
Yes.
alike, to figure out the work that is required to make a desktop product based on the software and make it usable. So I like this because it allows, if I'm going to go grab the Unity 8 spin, I know what I'm getting into. I'm ready to bang on it. Maybe I'm in the mindset where I'm ready to give some bug reports. Here's the actual post. The desktop team would like to add a new flavor. He says in parentheses, we don't plan to have any formal release at this point, but it's a flavor of Ubuntu which would contain the Unity 8 desktop and the new applications which would be developed for the Touch project. The initial intention is to provide a product that developers can use to figure out the work that is required to make the desktop product based on the software usable and create a space for experimentation to figure out the best way of carrying out the required integration. I'm liking this.
Yeah.
I'm liking this separate spin thing. So maybe they continue for a while, and then they're suggesting by Ubuntu 16.04, maybe it goes to the default.
Okay. I don't hate that idea. I really don't. I think that's pretty rational.
We have all of 2015 where it's a separate spin.
Good.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think that's an interesting idea.
Still cautious, but I like the direction. I think they're headed in the right way.
And while all of this stuff is in flux, one of the big projects that's affected by what decisions Canonical makes is the Linux Mint project.
Oh, yeah.
They just released the RC for the next version of Linux Mint, and on their blog, Clem has made it clear what their plans are. Now, we have heard discussions of these intentions. I think we even brought them up on Unplugged, but now we know. The decision has been made to stick to the long-term support base of Ubuntu. In other words, the development team will be focused on the very same package base used by Linux Mint 17, which is an RC right now, for the next 2 years. It also means for Mint users, it will be trivial to upgrade now from version 17 to 17.1 or 17.2, which has been a major criticism for Linux Mint.
Oh, it has.
During this time, that's one thing to keep in mind. There should be a minimal amount of regressions between Linux Mint after each release. So here's the deets, and it's an RC, so you can go test it right now. This makes Linux Mint 17 very important to the Linux Mint project, not just another release, but one that will receive security updates until 2019.
Ooh, it's interesting. I guess for their target audience, that could work.
They're going to do backports of new features until 2016.
Okay.
And even more importantly, it's the only package base besides Linux Mint Debian Edition, which they will focus on at all until 2016.
Really?
So what do you think about all that?
Boy,
how are you feeling about all that, Matt?
Well, honestly, I think they're really dropping the ball on the Debian Edition. I think that's a mistake. But
they're saying they're going to continue working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing they're going to work on besides this other stuff.
That's good. And as far as what they're doing with Ubuntu, I think for their audience, that makes sense. I get where they're going with it. Some people may not be overly thrilled about it, but it might potentially allow them to focus with greater I don't know.
Yeah, I can see
eyes on things, I guess.
Yeah, because if the base doesn't move as much, you can focus more on some of the user land stuff. I mean, I get all that. And I think for the target audience of Linux Mint, this is an ace move. I think it's going to be a good, stable desktop. They can tweak on some of the user land stuff a little more. It's closer to maybe what more commercial-like desktops do. I mean, not having a release every 6 months or every year is not that uncommon outside of Linux. However, for somebody like me, I don't think it's going to work for me. I don't think... Now, it would really depend on how the applications are updated and all that, but even falling that far behind on a kernel, I mean, unless they do major kernel updates, but I don't think that's going to happen with an LTS
I don't
release.
think so. Not at least not as frequently as you might like.
See, the thing is like, yeah, I just don't know. I'd have to try it, but...
Well, speaking for myself, unless I'm doing new hardware on a regular basis, I don't really care that much about new kernel updates. Now, the userland stuff I care about.
Yeah, I mean, but you know,
that's the application.
Like, I read about stuff and like, oh, it'd be nice to have that. But I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not running Ubuntu on this Ultra Pro anymore.
Yeah.
I'm running Arch because it started to feel old already, and it's only been a few weeks.
Well, I'm saying I'm still running Ubuntu on this just because I want to keep my fingers in the Ubuntu space. I have Arch on everything else, so it's just like
keeping your beak wet. I got you.
Yeah, I got to keep my beak wet and know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
no, I totally grok that, but I am definitely one of those people where I read about it, I follow it for this show, and I want it. And I also am under the philosophy that if managed correctly, a rolling Linux distribution is more true to the development model of Linux and open source in general.
So would the kernel backports not address this?
I don't know.
As a solution?
That's the part I got to wait and see.
Okay.
That's the wait and see thing. It really depends on how they manage it. I also totally acknowledge and recognize I am not the usual use case, especially for the market that Mint is likely targeting. I think for that market, and I think for users at all, and general Linux adoption in general, I think this could be a really good thing.
Sure.
I think for my particular use case,
maybe not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
Okay.
Also, side note, they say our traffic doubled lately, and all our stats are on the rise. They say, I don't know why. Maybe it's related to the end of Windows XP. Not really sure. Maybe it's because you're just making a good product.
It could be both, actually. I could see both kind of colliding.
But it's a good place to be in right now. So good. Congrats to the Linux Mint project, and you guys can go check out that release. I'd love to hear what you think too in that feedback thread, what you think about them sticking to the LTSs. I think it's a bold and maybe potentially risky move in the rapid pace development of Linux.
I'd say so.
Speaking of the rapid pace development of Linux, one of the favorite distributions in this town, Antigros.
Yes.
Antigros.
Big time.
New release. Now, they have also had an RC release coming out, but I thought this particular bit of news was interesting, and I actually installed, or I had Rikai do it, but Rikai installed Antigros on this for me yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
And guess what? The Antigros ISOs now they've partnered up with the Numix project. And so now...
Wow. Oh, so I see where you're going with this.
So for right now, the RC just has the Numix icon theme.
Right.
But in the future, they're talking with the Numix project to create an exclusive edition of Numix themes for the Antigros desktop, both for GTK and Qt. So in the RC that just came out, you'll be able to enjoy some of the premature advances of this agreement in the form of the icon theme. He says, not sure about the rest of the design and when it's going to make it, but it'll be out there in a future stable release. So you can go grab it right now. And also, congratulations, they just hit their 1-year mark. Remember, they used to be CentOrch.
Yeah, I remember that. And I've been really happy with it, honestly. It's a great way to get into Arch.
Yes, and they say in 1 year, we've improved our installer a lot to the point that other projects now use the code in their projects like Manjaro or Evolution. Yeah, I've seen that installer take off. Wow. They're very proud of Cinchi, although we know it isn't perfect. They say it's a nice and simple installer, and I agree.
It works for me.
Yeah. In 1 year, they've adopted some new developers and third-party contributors helping with the code. Also, thanks to the community, the installation of Antigros is being translated in 30 languages now.
Nice.
And our communities on Google Plus and Facebook have grown. Every day, some users from our community make a great contribution to the G Plus page, they say. And they say the community has helped out a lot in funding Antigros and keeping them going. So if you're enjoying that, you might want to consider continuing to give a little financial love to the project.
Definitely.
Keep them going because they're working on a really great distro. And I think
it would be really a hard hit for me personally.
And they also shouted out their appearance.
Oh, I saw that when I was looking at them here. I think it was on Friday.
So I mentioned Rikai installed Antigros on this Ultra Pro for me. He's always done Arch installations like just a regular Arch way.
Right.
And I told him, I said, once you do this installation, it's either going to work and it's going to be the most polished installation that you've ever done of a Linux desktop, or it's not going to work at all. That seems to be the state of the installer right now. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
And he got it loaded and he came back and he said, yeah, this was literally the smoothest installation of a Linux distro, the most polished. It was funny because I wanted to have this thing loaded and ready to go for today, and we were installing it yesterday. And we were just going to go straight old Arch. And I was like, you know what? Let's go Antigros. I'm going to go GNOME, and I'm going to use Chromium anyways. that gets us 88 to 90% of the way. We just deployed that. It worked out great. So it's a really good distribution if you want to get
definitely
you know if you want to get a little Arch under experience under your belt.
Some things you might be aware of and may not be aware of. One thing I've run into is you want to make sure that you have an Ethernet connection if you plan on installing this. Because the first thing it's going to say, oh, no internet connection, no install. Sorry.
It will work. We installed it over wireless, but
wireless seems to be hit and miss. I've had some success with it. Yeah.
It does pull down the latest packages during installation.
Right.
So the good side to that is, if you have a 6-month-old ISO, you're still getting today's packages straight from the Arch repo.
Yeah.
But the downside is, if you have any Wi-Fi problems,
right?
Ours
is fairly congested.
The installer can sometimes lock up on you.
Right.
So, like Matt's saying, if you use Ethernet, if you have any kind of wireless hookups, I would also recommend Ethernet because it's pulling down some big packages. Yeah. But it works really well. Like, I mean, that also means at the end of the installation, I have literally the latest of everything. I mean, to me, it now boggles my mind. Like, to me, it seems absolutely crazy that people install a Linux distribution that has like 6-month-old packages, like when they install it to the hard drive. And then the first thing they have to do is an update because, like, that's crazy.
That should have been done during the installation, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and Antergos just does all of that, like, absolutely latest kernel, absolutely latest DOM, absolutely latest Chromium, no updates after I'm done installing. It's ready to go. Everything's fresh. And so far, this is like, I mean, probably like the 13th or 14th install we have, and it's been working great.
I love it.
So anyways, congrats to the Antergos project, and go check it out. There's a whole range of distros that are out with their RCs right now. We got some good stuff coming up. Lots of fruit to pick for the Linux Action Show for future reviews, too. All right, Matt. That's all the news for this week. We're about to talk about the ultimate home server that's powered by Arch. Yes, I said Arch. But before we get into all the details on how to actually pull that off, I want to thank our segment sponsor, System 76, creators of machines born to run Linux. We got 2 of the rigs right here. Matt's got the Bonobo.
Oh yeah.
I've got the Ultra Pro. We've been using these on loan, and we still have them because I keep coming up with great excuses to test them with. Today I'm trying Arch on to see how Arch runs on the Ultra Pro. It turns out runs great, and I like the ability that I can sit here now and tell you guys, if you buy this machine, you don't have to run Ubuntu. If you run Ubuntu, it runs fantastic. But if you want to run something else, you absolutely can. So go over to System 76 and check out some of their offerings because they just updated the Bonobo Extreme, and it's on sale right now. So if you've been tempting to get the ultimate no-compromise performance mobile rig, this is the one to get. All right, here, check out the specs on this thing, Matt. So it has the Haswell i7 processor in it. Just stock right there. Core i7. 17.3-inch 1080p HD screen.
You got to love these specs. I mean, it's like...
You ready for this one?
Okay.
NVIDIA GTX 860 mobile. Or, if you want, you can even go all the way up to the 880 mobile.
That's crazy. I mean, that's gaming in your lap there.
That's unbelievable gaming performance in your lap. And you can get it with an 8-cell lithium battery, so you can actually power all of that hardware. This isn't a desktop replacement. This is a desktop dominator.
Yes.
My Bonobo continues to impress. Matt's got a slightly newer version than the Bonobo I have, and now we've got a brand new Bonobo with the 8 series NVIDIA cards in it. Absolutely blows my mind the performance they can get on a machine like that. And not only do they have them in these super thin light laptops like the Ultra Pro all the way up to the Bonobo, and they have some awesome desktops built right here in the good old US of A, but they also have a pretty great selection of servers. And we're going to be talking about servers today. We don't normally mention this about System 76, but if you're an institution that deploys Linux throughout your business, you probably want to take a look at System 76 because this is a vendor that totally groks Linux, can help you deploy a successful server infrastructure based on Linux. So go over to system76.com, check out all of their different stuff, and a really big thanks to those guys for supporting the Linux Action Show. Okay, Matt. Now, I think probably the first thing I'm going to get is, Chris, you can't run a server on Arch. You can't do it, Chris.
Can't be done. Can't be done.
I have a couple of bits of, I'm going to say, wisdom. Because, first of all, full disclaimer.
Okay.
You're talking to the guy who, a couple of lifetimes ago, had a lot of Gen 2 servers. I have often been in the position where I buy into this, this CentOS, Red Hat Enterprise, SUSE Enterprise Linux philosophy of a distro that only changes every few, 4 or 5 years. And the problem is about a year or two into these, I'm constantly running into I need a new package. In the past, it was printing support. I needed the absolute latest cups. I needed the absolute latest Ghost print and all that stuff. And so I needed something to provide that, and that was Gen 2. And I actually deployed about 30 Gen 2 servers at a bank.
Wow. That's, I mean, if you really let that soak in for a minute.
And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So deploying Arch today isn't that crazy. When you're coming from that. But I have over the years, you know, the sysadmin bone in me has gotten hard and throbbing, and I've really sort of gotten more focused on the stable. And however, something happened this last week. Man, I don't know if you noticed it. It kind of went under the radar. Not a lot of people are talking about it. Maybe it wasn't as devastating as the end of XP support, but it was devastating to me.
Oh, yeah. It affected a lot of people. I just don't think it got enough press.
Ubuntu 12.10 reached end of life on May 16th, 2014. And from previous home server segments we've done on this show, you might remember, dear viewer, that I had built a home server around 12.10. And you might be thinking, Chris, why would you build a home server around Ubuntu 12.10 when there's LTS releases out there? Well, viewer, good question. It was because I needed packages that weren't available for 12.04. They were only available for 12.10. It's a common problem. Things like Plex or Bittorrent Sync or whatever it was at the time, I don't remember. I needed to have a more up-to-date system, so I went 12.10. Well, 12.10's done. And in fact, not only is 12.10 no longer supported by Canonical, it's been like abandoned by the people that are maintaining PPAs for it like months ago. I stopped getting Plex updates like 2 months ago. I stopped getting BitTorrent Sync updates like 3 months ago.
Oh, forget that.
Yeah,
See,
the PPAs were just abandoned.
I could not.
I didn't want to deal with that ever again because I have users or viewers, listeners who sync with me, and all of a sudden we're getting these version mismatches because I can't update because I'm not able to stay up to date anymore. Arch obviously solves this problem.
Yes.
And so I felt, depending on your use case, and this is why I'm saying a home server, but it could work in an enterprise server too, Arch could be a good option if you need certain up-to-date packages. I have a major overriding philosophy when it comes to deploying Arch as a server, and you can boil down my entire philosophy to one word: focus. You have to focus an Arch server. If it has a specific purpose and a specific dedicated task, your quote-unquote risk of using Arch is reduced.
You know, with that understanding, then I agree. Yes, if it's like, look, I'm using this. I'm using this as like a thing to test printers on. Like I'm buying new printers, or you're using it. You want Plex or you want BitTorrent Sync. I get that. Yeah.
See, I think Arch. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you need something that's bleeding edge in some capacity for a single use or a couple uses, definitely.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
I think what you're saying is the common belief. I want to challenge that. I think outside a few with a few exceptions.
Okay.
And there's definitely, I'm talking home server here.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not talking, you know, enterprise web server and Varnish cache server and Squid server and Samba server. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about a home server. Maybe it has Samba on it.
Sure.
In a home server scenario, with just maybe a few exceptions, an Arch server, if you keep it absolutely lean, with only the packages required to perform a specific function, and then additional functions are spun off into separate VMs or containers, because VMs and containers in 2014 are super cheap. Yeah. And so if you need something that's doing Plex and BitTorrent Sync, put that in a VM. And then if you need something that's doing email and XMPP and maybe some sort of IRC proxy, put that in a separate VM. And then when you do updates, you're only updating, you know, on each system a couple of hundred packages.
That's
and there's
reasonable.
not a lot of room for there to be breakage.
Okay.
And it's not that bad. Because you can use, and I'm going to show you how we did it, you can use like templates to deploy Arch systems, so that way you can get them all built up to a certain point with minimal packages installed, template that, and then deploy that over and over again.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Okay, so I think with the understanding that if you do it in this type of scenario, this could actually make a lot of sense. I think doing it the way most people would interpret it otherwise, to where they just take like an existing Arch setup with everything and throw a bunch of stuff at it, that's probably where they're going to fall down. So I think this is the approach to consider.
And I think a lot of folks out there would say at this point, well, Chris, you could accomplish a lot of what you want to accomplish with, say, a Debian testing-based distro like Seduction or just Debian testing itself.
Yeah.
And yes and no. Here's the context in which I'm talking about this. This is a headless server, no GUI. And when you remove the GUI...
That's a lot of moving parts you get rid of.
Yeah, exactly. And also, there's... essentially the usability advantage that one distro has over the other when you're just going command line for all of it across the board. Right. A lot of those advantages other distros have is nullified. And the major usability advantage that Arch has is that wiki. Like the stuff you're going to want to do on your home server is documented on that Arch wiki. So if you're going command line, you're going a virtual machine, you've got snapshots, you've got templates, why not go with Arch? Because you get the latest versions of Plex, you get the latest version of Bittorrent Sync, and you've got that Arch wiki that is more up to date than any other distribution's documentation that's out there. And at the end of the day, when it's you sitting in your house on a Saturday evening and you need to get SAB-NZB up and running, that wiki is a huge usability differentiator, right?
True. Yeah.
So for just regular old Linux user who wants to have a server they can set stuff up on, Arch has a massive advantage right there. So I think there's an just absolutely invaluable amount of help you can pull from that Arch wiki, and that in a lot of ways gives Arch, even though it has a reputation for being hard to use, actually gives Arch a leg up over all other distributions when you're just equalizing it all out on the command line anyways.
Well, and I think the nice thing, of course, this is true with any package manager, but especially with Arch specifically, when you got it lean like that, it's like, oh, hey, look, this latest update broke something. That's cool. I'll just revert back to the working package. Done. Who cares? And because you're only using it, in specialized use case scenarios like that, it's easy enough to recognize and then fix. So,
and you're only out one particular application or two.
Right.
You're not out the whole stack of all the home server stuff. You're only out one or two things.
That's true.
So, here's how we did it here at JBHQ. For those longtime viewers, this isn't going to be too surprising. We went with Proxmox, which supports a mix of KVM virtual machines and Linux containers. Here is my Proxmox VM right here. And on here, we've got a couple of machines running right now. We've got an encoding machine, and this is in a resource group called Full Hog. And any machine that's in the Full Hog group gets 8 cores, can use up tons of RAM. These are machines we want to just let it have at it, right? Then we've got a resource group called Canada. This is where we're really polite. We're nice to our neighbors, right? Man. We say sorry a lot in Canada Resource Group, and things like the Plex server live in Canada.
Okay.
So and like the SAB-NZB server lives in Canada. That way it can't get too crazy. So that way if we need to get some work done, Encoder 1 gets the right of way. Yeah. And on top of that, we've got a Ubuntu 14.04 container that we can deploy. Now these containers are really fast because they're essentially at native performance. But here's the best thing we did, I think, so far, is once we got we have this server called Dubstep Media. Once we got Dubstep Media set up with the NFS mount, and I'm going to tell you more about that here in a second, because there's a really cool way now to do NFS mounts. I know that sounds crazy, but there's a cool way to do NFS mounts. We've got user accounts set up with the right UIDs. That way we don't have NFS file permissions, all this stuff. We got it just to the right point, made it a template, and then when we need future servers, it's just a matter of going to this template right here. I click on this and I just say clone this template, and then within about 30 seconds I have a fully set up Arch box that has all my NFS mounts preset in, good to go. Just do a quick update and it's ready.
I like that.
Yeah, and you can also you can update you can upload ISOs to Proxmox, so you can deploy new machines really quick, really fast. So this is the virtualization is running on a Core i7 rig. We have in this Proxmox machine a 1 terabyte local hard drive a RAID 0. So it's super fast local storage, and that's where the media server's OS is installed. Then, this might be a bit of the controversial part, we have that mounted to a FreeNAS file server. And I was thinking at first of actually making this an Arch box as well with Btrfs. But then we got so much negative feedback about Btrfs that I kind of chickened out and went ZFS. And if I'm going to go ZFS, well, then I generally want to go FreeNAS. I mean, the thing is ZFS does work on Linux, but there's a real utility aspect to FreeNAS, which really appeals in this scenario, because when all of the application stuff is handled by front-end Arch boxes, the back-end storage needs to really be just totally simple and reliable, like an appliance.
That you can really get your feet into it and rely on it.
Just know that like if I got a bunch of boxes running on it, there's not a lot happening there. I don't have Bittorrent Sync running on the FreeNAS. It's just doing a native ZFS implementation with RAID and an NFS mount available.
Nice.
Now, here's a couple of important things when you're setting up NFS for your network. I want to impart upon you to install NTP, the network time protocol, on the file server and on all the clients. That way they all have the same time when they're talking over the same file system. In Arch, let me pull this up for you. I want to recommend in Arch when you mount, if you want to have your NFS, if you want to have your machine mount NFS at boot, I want to encourage you to consider to actually use systemd to make that mount happen. Oh. And I've got a link right here in the show notes. It's great. So here's what's great is in FS tab, you can specify to use systemd as the mounter. And what that does is it takes everything that systemd is aware of, all of the network-based dependencies, and applies it to your NFS mount. So if you have a network interruption, systemd is intelligent enough to disconnect and reestablish that NFS mount transparently on the back end.
Wow.
So that way you don't just
with it.
Yeah, you don't have it just hanging there like you would traditionally with an NFS mount. Systemd will keep that connection. Another example is systemd will unmount it before the network shuts down. That way you get a proper unmount, and systemd will mount it after the network has been activated. So there's some advantages to using, and I'll get to this in a second, but there was some definite advantages to using systemd to manage the NFS mount, because guess what happened here at JB1?
What happened?
We got this front-end Proxmox box rocking. We got a FreeNAS box reloaded on the iX FreeNAS Mini with a fresh install of FreeNAS, a beautiful array. We'd have lots of redundancy, so we only have 5 terabytes. Out of 12 terabytes total, we got 5 terabytes available. We're rocking, we're loading up. Hard drive pops.
Oh,
right then and there. Hard drive pops, Matt. Of course, it was the last non-Western Digital Red in production. Hard drive pops. So, turns out, FreeNAS, as far as I can tell, has no UI to just one-to-one swap a drive, because you have to remove a drive from the storage pool and then add the replacement drive. FreeNAS provides no facility for this, so you have to do it through the command line. So I was trying out different stuff, rebooting the FreeNAS box, and having systemd be smart enough to reestablish those connections. It meant that all of the applications we have running over the NFS mount just were very transparently reconnected to their storage and able to continue on.
You didn't get a lot of breakage or surprises or things you have to track down.
None.
Later. That's nice.
Zero. After multiple restarts of our NAS, it was really a big deal. So I want to talk about a couple of the applications that we use. One of them is SAB-NZB, which is a Usenet client. What's really nice about this Usenet client is it has an API available, so a lot of the other applications we use can talk directly to it, send it jobs. It can monitor an NZB folder, so on the NFS mount, we just have an NZB folder. You drop a Usenet NZB file in there. It automatically triggers the downloads. It pulls them down to the right location, extracts them, and moves them to their destination.
Pretty.
And it can do notifications and let other applications know. And we have that combined with an application called Couch Potato. Now, I am not advocating piracy. We use this to just grab copies of legitimate Blu-rays we already own. I have a collection. They're at the house, so I wanted them here at the studio.
Sure.
Bob's your uncle. You plug a title. Give me a. We'll just do a quick demo. Give me a movie name, Matt.
Oh, I don't know.
How about Ghostbusters?
Ghostbusters is a good one.
All right, we'll look for Ghost. So I type in Ghost, and then
that's cool. So I got an autocomplete.
Yeah, it'll do it. So I put Busters in here, and so Buster. So you have all of the different selection of the Ghostbusters movies. You pick the one you want.
Very nice.
It'll find it on NZB. It'll find it on Usenet, and then it will send the NZB file to our SAB NZB installation. It'll start the download and extraction automatically.
I like that.
Then once that's done, it feeds it to the Plex box, which we have installed on Arch. This is one of the main reasons I wanted to go with Arch, is I wanted a really fresh Plex installation. So then you have automatically, when you download, SAB NZB puts it into a folder. It can then be set to ping Plex. So Plex goes out and automatically updates this library. I've got how to do that in the show notes. This is a nice system where all these applications are talking together.
Very cool.
And it's very automated.
Right.
It's very hands-off. And part of that's made possible with SickBeard, which is a web app that you can plug in the name of a TV series that perhaps you're watching. It'll automatically search Usenet for that. But I don't want to focus too much on that, because if that can be used for nefarious purposes, as it were.
Oh, certainly, but yeah.
But it is available depending on the legality or what you're downloading. There you can also just put, not only SickBeard can also download free and open source things and whatnot.
Especially if you're looking at the latest versions or revisions of something, you want to be able to pull it down quickly as it comes about, nightly builds. It's nice to have that option.
So all of this is cool, but what happens, when your server is working really hard, maybe something's going astray? Because one of the things you want to remember about this home server is this is headless. This is something that you set it up, and then aside from occasional updates, you just let it run.
Yeah, you're not connecting to.
You don't have it up on
a computer,
console. Right. So it is probably good to have a method to check into it from time to time to see how it's doing health-wise. So I want to talk to you about Monitor X. Monitor IX is an open source monitoring program that you can have it monitor multiple machines or a single machine. Right now, I just have one of our Arch servers set up, and I can go in here and get a daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly report of all graphs, or I can get of specific functions on the system, like processor load, file system load, kernel usage. But let's just pull the daily report.
Yeah, let's just pull the whole thing down.
All right, so here it'll generate right now, and it does it in a really fancy kind of graph system. So here is the load average of our Arch KVM box. You can see right there around 6 a.m. there was something really happening on that box, so we have a big spike right there. You can see our overall active processes here. We had over 200 processes during this 6 a.m. period when the CPU usage was high. Here's kernel usage. The context switching in forks, I think, is interesting. The virtual file system usage is kind of neat. I/O activity on the disk. You can see here we had a lot of work going, and then about 6 a.m. it stopped. Probably while I was waiting for something to process on the CPU.
Ah, yes. It's got a lot of great graph.
Our Ethernet activity, our IP4 and IPv6, system demand services, and here's our network port traffic. You can see our different protocols on here. Here's SMTP, which we don't have a lot of, or FTP, we don't have any really. But if you had these individual services, it'll break out their usage. Users logged in because it's really just two of us. It's not
not going to show a bunch there.
Samba connections is interesting too if you want to load this on a Samba server. And here you can see some of our NFS statistics. So at 6 a.m. when that CPU usage was high, also our NFS usage was high.
That's nice because now you have a correlation as to what drove that to.
I know it was working on something on the NFS share.
That's helpful.
Yeah, and then you could here's some more stats here, and also you can keep an eye on just things like how's your NTP date, how much is your clock drifting from the NTP sources. These are interesting things that can give you some health insights, right? So that's Monitor X, and once you load it up, it's pretty easy to get going. There's a config file you can monitor, and guys, don't worry, we're going through this fast, but a lot of the stuff we're talking about, we're going to break out into future How To Linux episodes and cover it really deep, what you need to know to get this stuff working. But what I have done is in the show notes, when I've noticed that either the Arch Wiki was out of date or a blog that I followed that perhaps the Arch Wiki didn't cover, I have made notes in the show notes that sort of close the gap on stuff that was inaccurate. So if you guys get the wild hair to deploy a home server, you can check the show notes, and a lot of I've added little caveats, or this is where the config file's at that you need to go edit. That kind of stuff is all
that's really helpful because sometimes the documentation lacks those things. It assumes you know.
Yeah.
So
like here's like for Couch Potato, for example, a lot of this stuff is not even accurate in the wiki anymore. Yeah. I thought about updating the wiki, but I think we're going to save that for when we're doing the How To Linux shows.
Let someone else deal with that and just worry about our stuff.
So there's a couple of they're not very flashy, but I think regardless if it's an Arch box or if it's a production server, there's a couple of packages you want to install. And one of them, it's not very awesome, but it's an SMTP server. And I know setting up a mail server, it's a pain in the butt. So what I want to recommend is check this out, SSMTP.
Oh.
It's a simple SMTP server that you can configure to relay through your Gmail account or something like that. So you don't have to have a full-fledged mail server.
Right.
But the reason I want you to set up a mail server is a lot of these applications will talk to you over email because they're running headless, right? They're processes that cron jobs kick off.
So use your email to actually stay informed.
It'll kick you off an error over email when you have a problem. And this is critical. You guys, when you have a headless server, one of the ways you can keep tabs on what it's doing is by having an SMTP server, because then once you have a mail server set up that can actually reach you, you can use cool services like LogWatch. And I have LogWatch installed on my server. And what LogWatch does is it monitors all the logs, and you can configure it in various locations what logs it monitors. And when it sees something above a certain threshold, it kicks off an email to me. It says, hey, Chris, by the way, this is happening on your server. You should probably be aware of it. And that gives me the resources combined with Monderex to go in there and say, oh, boy, yeah, we really do have a problem here before it becomes a catastrophe.
Right.
And when you have a home server, maybe you've got your photo collection or your media collection on it, you want to catch this stuff before it becomes a really big problem. And it's something as mundane and simple as setting up an SMTP server and deploying LogWatch can literally, I know this sounds like hyperbole, but it's true, it can literally be the difference between you having all of your photos and losing all of your photos.
Well, because a lot of people think, oh, yeah, I got a backup I did a year ago. It's recent enough. The server's fine.
Server's good.
deal.
No problem.
This could literally save your bacon.
Yeah,
I've
really
had
could.
close calls with like wedding pictures and stuff.
Yes.
Really, and I got lucky. So.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a bad time in that.
I've lost some really important things in the past, so
Yeah.
it's something I'm pretty sensitive to. I mean, like stuff that's just like, put me on the S list with the wife for about the next 20 years. Just saying. Last but not least, I'm still playing with it. Bittorrent Sync is still my go-to sync solution.
Yes.
However, I mean, it's in the Arch user repository, so I deployed Syncthing, that our weekly spotlight pick that we talked about, and I want to show it to you.
Okay.
So this is the admin control panel to Syncthing right here. It's pretty nice.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
It's a little more straightforward and cleaner than the Bittorrent Sync one. And one of the things that's nice about this is once you've added a node, a peer node, and this is where it's mainly different. So you add a node, and then everybody has their own unique ID.
Right.
So I would, like, say you and I wanted to sync up like some ROMs or something.
Yeah.
I would give you this key, and you would give me your key from your machine. We would put them into each other's Syncthing dashboard. And then we could go into Add Repository, and you would show up as a checkbox that I could select, save, and now I'm deploying to you.
So with this, you actually do need to do a key exchange. It's not just a matter of saying,
here's
here's my key. You actually got to.
See, it's not quite as easy to do it.
It's not horrible, but it definitely is a differentiator.
And then every time you make a change right now in Syncthing, you got to restart.
Yeah, that's something I would like to see.
But like a lot of times I've had a little trouble with it working here on my Android. But so there it goes. So it just discovered one of the other nodes on the network, and so now they're able to sync between each other. And this would be an easy way to sync, music or photos or whatever it is, because I have a hybrid of sharing with just on the LAN and with people over the internet where I just want to send them a key. I'm not totally on board with this, but I'm definitely giving it a try for a while just to see how it works out. And again, it's really easy to get going. But one thing, and check the show notes for these caveats, is sometimes these services you install use the same port. Syncthing and SAB-NZB, for example, are both on port 8080.
That could be a problem.
So you're going to have to go in there and tweak the config for Syncthing to use a different port. I set mine to 8070.
There you go.
But I have in the show notes the config file you need to go tweak to set that. It's an XML file for Syncthing, and it's not a big deal. It's really straightforward. Oh, and one other thing that's interesting about Syncthing is it runs as individual users. So right now, this is running as a specific user on my Arch box. It doesn't really run as root. It's not like a system service.
I kind of prefer that, actually.
Yeah.
I really do.
And it also means that each user, if you had a multi-user box, could have their own Syncthing configs, because the config is stored in their individual home directories.
I like that, too. I definitely like that. Yeah, and I think it's probably just a good idea in general, just to print off a sheet of what's using what port on your box, just to kind of know where things are at. You don't mismatch.
Yeah. I'm so overall, I'm really happy with the performance under KVM. I was kind of blown away by the performance. B, although I will admit, we tried to get Arch working under a container in Proxmox, a Linux container, and there's like a bug in systemd right now that makes it not work. So I had to go KVM, but it works really well, and the performance is solid. The packages are up to date. The one thing, and you mentioned this during the break,
right?
I'm a little worried about is keeping these things up to date. You know what I mean?
Well, so earlier we were talking a little bit about, people hate on Manjaro because they basically feel like it's kind of like it's, I don't know, like Arch Linux, but with rubber boots, to where you somehow feel like you're trying to protect yourself from something that's not really there.
I said it was like Arch Linux on delay.
Yeah, I mean, and in reality it is, but I see situations to where that's an advantage. I have a Plex box that I use for my stuff, and I don't want to update it every day. I really don't. I don't want to deal with it. It's not a box that I use for anything other than that.
Yeah.
So for me, because I didn't want to use like Ubuntu or something like that instead, I found that to be a really good match for it. On my daily box, I prefer Arch because I want to be able to do that. But you give yourself a month or something of not updating, and then you go to update Arch, you're going to have a laundry list of updates.
Yeah, that's for sure. I've been experimenting with this because my DigitalOcean droplet that I've been running for quite a while now is running Arch, and I go in about once every 2 months right now and do an update. And so I suspect, so here's what drove me to want newer versions of Plex, is right now on my 1210 box, when I try to do Plex playback through the web, I keep getting an error that my Plex server is too out of date for the player, and I have to go into compatibility mode. It's like, I don't want to deal with that ever again.
And see, Manjaro gave me the option. I still get the latest Plex. but I don't have to. But all the system packages, I don't have to worry about updating.
I like that.
Time, you know?
So how I'm countering that is to stay just strict Arch.
Yeah.
Is this focused approach?
Yeah.
Where it's got Plex, SAB-NZB, Couch Potato, and that's a machine.
Right.
And then we've got a machine that has XMPP, Quasal client, and maybe one other thing, and that's a machine.
Oh, interesting.
And then it's like, okay, so now we're only talking about 140 packages or so that have to be updated.
That makes it a lot easier, and that's a really solid approach as well.
And then what I'm figuring is because the update footprint is so small that we're almost going to be pushed to do the updates just by wanting, hey, I want the new Bittorrent Sync, or hey, I want the new Plex, and then we'll log in every couple of months and do an update.
Exactly.
I don't know. And so what I figured is I'm going to be a good public test case. We've got right now 2 Arch servers here and 1 up at DigitalOcean. I'm going to run these 3 servers, and if I run into problems after a few months, I'll talk about it.
There you go.
And if I don't after a while, I'll talk about that as well. So I'm kind of going to be the public guinea pig to see how Arch works in this environment. Right now, I got a good feeling about it. And the other thing is, like, we're not even done. Like,
oh, really?
We're going to start talking about an own cloud installation, maybe a Gobi installation. Rikai and I this morning were talking about a local GitHub repository, a network backup solution like Bacula or rsync script, something like that. So there's more stuff we're going to be doing. And I feel like with all of it, in one part, the Arch Wiki's got my back. So I know, like, when we get crazy and want to go to Bacula or whatever it is, I'm probably going to find a great article on the Arch Wiki. And then the second thing that's got my back is those Proxmox snapshots. So if something goes wild before we do something, we just take a snapshot.
That's true. And you just revert back if you need to. No big deal.
And I thought about going just straight up, like, minimal Linux install with KVM and all that kind of stuff. But then down the road, it's like, nah, we're going to have a whole team of people working on this eventually. So it'd be nice to have a front end to it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So it's a pretty good setup. I'm really happy that right now it's definitely early days. So if you want to take the experiment with me, I'd love to try the Arch Home Server Challenge and see how it goes. For me, thrilled. I got most of this set up within a few days, 3 or 4 days total, I think, working on it here and there. And it has been so smooth, so awesome. Yeah. And it's nice to know, because originally when I did a lot of this, it was on a 12.10 instance. And that 12.10 instance, using PPAs and guides, it was great. But then, fast forward a couple of, what was it? 2 years, I guess?
I think about 2 years, yeah. Pretty close.
Fast forward, and now a lot of the advantages I had with going to 12.10 are now, those advantages are tilted towards Arch. So we'll see how it goes.
And when you take his Arch approach, remember, it's focus. Don't just like slap a bunch of stuff in Arch in there and say, oh, it broke. No. It's focus.
But I'm hoping,
minimal.
I guess long term what I'm hoping is I never once again run into the situation where I'm a year or so into it or 2 years into it, and it's, oh, by the way, nobody's supporting that anymore. Because with Arch, there is no version to discontinue support for. And there's a community around that AUR that's unlike any other Linux community when it comes to packaging software. And on top of that, I'm just going to continue to receive updates. So for me, I feel like, again, because I have snapshots and whatnot, this might be the last server install I do here.
Right.
Where it's not like even in not even in 5 years am I going to have to reload.
Well, and I think that's, for me, was the real difference between the AUR and the PPAs, is that PPAs, it's like, oh, sorry, you're screwed. That's it. You go find another one, or good luck.
Maybe somebody else made one.
Yeah, exactly. AUR, it's like, if for some reason it's abandoned, or for some reason there is even a bug in the package builder or whatever, there's a fix, or someone's taking over. There's some activity happening, no matter how obscure it may be.
Yeah, and there's at least, like in the AUR, a comment thread where you can see people discussing what's the future fate of this package.
And 99.9% of the time, if it does, in fact, it is a dead package, there's a link going to where someone else has done something.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Yeah.
Just go there. Problem solved.
So it went probably twice as smooth as I expected it to go.
Yeah.
The results have been, at best, exceeding my expectations. Yes. And I'll keep you guys updated. If this blows up in my face, well, I'll definitely I'll make for a good rant.
It'd make a great rant, great use case scenario.
Yeah, we'll let you guys know. But right now, go check the show notes. It's all listed out there. That, in my opinion, is the ultimate Arch home Linux server. That brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But Matt, before we get out of here, we got a little follow-up to do. Are you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
So last week we asked the folks, do you trust critical data to Btrfs? And I'm in the yep column.
And see,
I'm a dope.
I'm in, I want to, but I don't.
Yeah, you're in the nope column currently.
I just don't.
So let's hit the big results. Let's see what we got. Are you ready, Matt? Drum roll, please. Boom. 67%. Nope. Said nope. And then only 33% said yep. A pretty devastating lose for Btrfs, which honestly was watching this poll, I was like, okay, we got to go CFS.
And I think for me, it was more that I had to weigh out the benefit with the potential of risk. And it was just kind of like,
I'm really surprised though. So 426 votes. I don't know. Yeah. I thought because, Linux Action Show, hardcore Linux audience, I thought these guys would be all in on Butter. But you know what? It shows that there's some rational thinkers out there too, because it is early days still. It is.
Bacon yes, butter no.
Yeah.
There it is.
Bacon FS. I'm jumping on that right away.
That would be awesome.
All right. Walla Walla Noob writes in with a dream setup, a home server question. Hello, Matt and Chris. I have a little need to accomplish much. Actually, using my computer at home, I use it to track finances, pay bills, learn stuff, and watch some videos. Linux is a hobby for me. In a recent episode of Linux Unplugged, Chris invited the audience to fill out a questionnaire about their dream setup, which we'll be talking about more in Linux Unplugged. I don't have a dream setup, and I doubt I'll even need a home server. However, I have decades of family photos and piles of kid files that we refuse to admit we don't need. The pile of CDs and DVDs is not promising.
Oh boy.
Sending them off would be easy enough. Ever getting them back would not.
Yeah.
The multi-gig pile of photos on the laptop and hard drives and DVDs is just sitting around. It appears I cannot. He says, "Appears I could buy a NUC or similar gizwad and add an SSD drive and configure it as an encrypted file server or NAS. Then here's the good part: send it to my brother-in-law. When I want to access it, I'll just call him. He powers it on, plugs into his router, and then I can find it and download anything I want and get my precious data." So he's talking about making his own 1 terabyte box by sending it over to a family member using a NUC, having it exposed only to the internet for a few weeks each year. He wants to know, though, is this a silly idea? Would it be silly if it was just plugged into his router and I used it almost every day? And how would either of us go about accomplishing this task? And he says, I couldn't tell from the subreddit if you have a spot for How-To Linux yet. We will have a How-To Linux subreddit, so stay tuned for that. But so that was Michael, Walla Walla Noob, wanting to know, what do we think about this setup with a NUC, where he sends it over to his brother's house, his brother plugs it in from time to time, he gets access to it, saves his data there. Would this be something you'd be up for?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, I get the advantage. I mean, I think the perceived advantage is that it's quote unquote less of a security risk if it's only put up for a period of time. Which, in truth, really, if it's public, it's public. It doesn't really matter, encrypted or otherwise. But whatever. I mean, you get some power benefits there. But I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, you could also do something similar to that with the cloud services too. I mean, at that point,
and
you could, because it's still, it's still out there. You're not really gaining a lot of security.
It could be even like a droplet that you turn on and off. It could be an EC2 instance. I actually would go the other route. I would say go the NUC, install it as you want, send it to the brother's house, leave it on though. I mean, first of all, the NUC takes like less than a light bulb.
There's no power.
It's seriously low power. And then on top of that, the system that you're going to keep secure and up to date is the system you use all the time. The one that slips and eventually has some sort of security issue is the one you don't pay any attention to. And I think that's important for all of us in this home server episode to keep in mind. Right? The box the most secure is the one you update the most often.
Right.
So use it. Like he says, maybe I could use it maybe I could even use it daily. Yes.
Yeah.
Do that. Keep it up to date. Keep it secure. Stay on top of things like fail to ban or all these different options you could use to keep it secure. Do it, Walla Walla Noob, but just with the one exception of don't have them turn it on and off. Have them leave it running. Use things like Monderix. Use things like Logwatch.
Disable
to keep an eye on
unused services.
Boom, huge one. Totally.
That's a big one.
Don't install anything you don't need. No. And in the future, you might see an episode on us on how to use two-factor authentication with SSH and stuff like that if you guys are interested.
Very much
which could also help. All right, Han writes in. He says, "Dear amazing hosts and adventurers of Linux." Wow. How about
I like that.
He also says hello to the chat room.
Well, that's great.
This guy's awesome. This guy's got it covered. He says, "My name is Han, and I'm currently having a dilemma at my library here in Richmond, California. All of our computers right now run on outdated Windows XP and Windows 7 machines that are costing a fortune for licensing fees and replacement hardware." He says, "I found an article from Alabama about how they save money by switching to Linux, and I was wondering, what is the actual cost savings would there be if we switched our entire library system to a Linux distro?" He says, "I know preferably Arch, but I think right now we're leaning Ubuntu."
Sure.
That's fine.
Sure.
We have about 50 computers in our system running on Intel Celerons and iCore i5s. Not sure if that's enough detail. Sorry. Still hoping to get all this figured out. Thanks and keep all the shows coming. JB fan for life.
Well, I guess the real meat and potatoes is like if you, let's for example say you were sticking with a Windows setup. Now, are you using an existing person to make these things happen? Totally excluding licensing costs. Look at your look at your fixed costs as far as the labor and whatnot. If there, if is this something could be outsourced to the community? Is there some way of actually getting in contact with the Linux users group?
Yeah.
If you can actually minimize that completely, the licensing costs, obviously gone with Linux already.
Right.
Then the cost becomes near zero.
Yeah.
I might have to swap out a couple of components, but
I think what he's doing too is he's trying to figure out how much money they would save with Linux. I would sort of flip that and go, how much money are you going to spend with Windows? Right. What's it going to cost to get Windows 8 licenses? What's it going to cost to get the Office licenses you'll need, or whatever else, what other commercial software you'll need to license on Windows? And then don't forget that ongoing tech support cost.
That's it.
This is where Linux is going to save you money in the long term. Initially, up front, where Linux costs you the most is that initial deployment and adjustment period that lasts anywhere between 1 to 3 months after you switch a group of users over to Linux. You get them situated. After that, and this is something that Noah, who owns an independent IT contracting business, and he and I joked about this. Once you switch a client over to Linux, that client no longer makes you any money.
Yeah, I used to be in the repair business, and when I retired from it, that is actually what I did. I referred them to the Linux.
When you were done and didn't want to make any more money, it's like, hey, go use Linux.
Yeah.
So
I hooked them up with a couple of people who could help them, but for the most part, it takes care of itself.
Like essentially, the support costs are way lower. There is still going to be support costs, but they're probably at least.
They're infrequent.
Yeah.
Really.
Safe estimate is half the support cost. Is just cut it in half.
Get
once
a nice
deployments
maintenance setup. Someone to come in and kind of maintain your stuff. You won't have a problem.
And then remember that even if you're budgeting Windows 8 today, well, in another 5 to 10 years, the whole problem arises again. And if you're using Linux, once you've switched over to free software, you don't have this 5 to 7 to 8 year cycle, or for some 3-year cycle where you're rebuying all these licenses, even at upgrade costs, over and over again indefinitely. I mean, that's just a nightmare.
One thing I might point out to them, and I'm not saying you should go with Arch or anything like that, but I would suggest considering a reasonably trusted rolling release. And the reason for that is that means that you're not going to have these big release surprises, especially on multiple machines. Something to consider, whether it be Debian or whatever you want to do.
I mean, if you went like 1404 LTS, which is what he was leaning towards, right?
It's going to hit a roadblock eventually.
But you get 5 years.
You get 5 years.
Then in 5 years, you got to come in and have a support time. But there's at least it's just the time for the IT people. There's no like license you're going to have to buy for 1604 or whatever it's going to be.
Exactly.
And assuming all of the software you need to run is like web-based or available for Linux, that's really, as long as you don't have anything that requires Windows, then you're good to go. Do it. Yeah. And then, you don't have to worry about it. Because the thing is, these guys come in, they use library machines. They get all kinds of gunk on there because they're looking at porn or whatnot in the library. It's disgusting, and it makes the machines all gunked up.
Squid.
Don't have to worry about it. Yep. Oh, yeah. Put a squid box in front of it, too. Why not?
Yeah, there's a number of really good tools. While I'd say for the home user, OpenDNS is probably your go-to thing for Linux. I think from an enterprise standpoint, there's a lot of really great tools that you can pop in front of there.
I think OpenDNS could also even work in that scenario.
Yeesh.
Too. All right, Matt. Well, where should we send people to read a little bit more about what you're up to throughout the week?
You can always find me at datamation.com. Scroll down to open source. The latest article is the Linux desktop secure?
And people have been liking this one.
Yeah, I was pretty honest about it. I mean,
in the wake of Heartbleed, is desktop Linux truly safe?
Gotta love my editor. Yeah, so it's because it's a true thing. My big focus is that if it executes code and is read and write, it can be exploited. I don't care what it is. Your watch, whatever. But
soon at least,
and blow up in your face. But no,
my Fitbit,
exactly. But so that's something to check out. Also, you can find us at Geek and the Gamer.
Yeah, how's that going?
It's going pretty good. I think we're kind of settling on Saturday releases. It looks like that's kind of where we're.
Wow, weekly?
Yeah, we're going weekly.
Respect, man.
Yeah,
respect.
I think we're going to go weekly.
Look at you, good job.
So, I think Saturday's kind of right before the shows.
Ooh, good one.
We like this game.
The Beat Hazard was one I was just thinking about picking up.
Do your own MP3s. You can't do it on YouTube, obviously, but do your own MP3s, and it really picks up to the song. It lasts for the song's duration.
Really?
It's awesome. If you're needing to blow off real steam, this is it.
I didn't even see him.
Nice. Two fun facts to this game.
You know, another game that has really, really fun beats is let's see. I was just playing on the pre-show stream. I got to give a recommendation to this game because it's super fun. It's a platformer which I have a soft spot for, but it has a really fun soundtrack. It's called Battle Block Theater. And I'm loving
the
Battle Block
intro
Theater.
had me on the floor when I first heard of it. I couldn't believe it.
And if you're a fan of Firefly, you might check out Shiny the Firefly.
Ooh,
it's a Firefly game where you get points and stuff. Both Battle Block and Shiny the Firefly are way better with controllers.
Nice.
Way better.
Yeah,
you can do it with the keyboard though. I have done it, but way better. But
cool.
Battle Block Theater. I honestly, you guys, not even kidding. So many games came out for Linux in the last week on Steam. I could have gone just nothing but games for this episode. Like seriously, Matt and I could have just talked about games for the whole episode. So many good games came out this week for Linux alone. So if you haven't been in Steam for a while, wow, we are in a very unique time for Linux right now, and it is incredible to watch these releases on Steam. And some of these are coming from touch platforms.
Yeah.
Some of these are just totally independent creations. Some of them are ports that have been needed to come over to Linux for a long time. It is a cornucopia of games right now. As a gamer, I've never been happier on Linux. So go check that out. And also, don't forget, you can check us out every Tuesday on Linux Unplugged. Last week, we did episode 40 of Linux Unplugged, Developers Get Cute, where we talked a little bit with the LXQT developers, 2 devs from the LXQT project.
That was an awesome episode.
And we talked more about the Ubuntu Orange Box as well as Qt in general. And also for those of you who were getting this malware warning last Monday when you tried to download the Linux Action Show, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Our stats tracking service, PodTrack, got flagged by Google. And so all podcasts that use PodTrack, I mean, that was like NPR, The Nerdist, Twit, Jupiter Broadcasting, all of us. We all got taken off the air Monday morning. I know a lot of you download last. So don't worry. We were never affected by this. It was simply PodTrack, and it kind of looks like it might have been bogus, too, which is a huge problem because essentially...
I've seen this happen before, yeah. And
Google just took down podcasting Monday morning, basically.
I've seen this happen with Firefox and other companies. It's a flawed system. I'm just going to leave it there.
And last but not least... in Linux Unplugged episode 40, we have a survey embedded. I'm going to collect your guys' results, and then I'm going to tweak our JB1 server here on what makes your perfect home server.
Nice.
So go over there and fill that out if you would, because I'm looking for your suggestions on ways we can improve and fancy up our home server. Now you got to go over to Linux Unplugged episode 40. That's where we have that survey embedded. But I would love to hear it because I'm going to follow up on 41 on some of your suggestions.
Episode 40.
40, and then 41 will have the results.
Nice.
That'll be on next Tuesday. And we got some really good stuff coming up. We got some interviews planned for the next couple of episodes and all that stuff. So be sure you check in. You can watch the Linux Action Show live on Sundays. We start at 10 a.m. Pacific. Just go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And honestly, if you go to the calendar page, it does the time math for you.
Yeah.
Use
Easy.
the computers, you know what? Let them do the counting for you. That's what they're good at. And show up a little before 10 o'clock because like this morning we were doing some pre-show streaming with some games, some back and forth banter and stuff like that. The live experience is like
very different.
Double or triple the show because there's a lot of stuff that happens that just doesn't make it into the recording. So we love to have you live. Plus you get to hang out in our chat room and help us name the episode.
It's like our bloopers reel, but more of it. It's good stuff.
It's like where all the bloopers are often pulled from.
That's 99% of the time. That's where the weirdness happens.
Exactly. So we'd love to have you join us over at jblive.tv every single Sunday or Tuesdays. You can become part of our virtual lug and join us in that mumble room and get your opinion into Linux Unplugged. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. Wait. One more thing, just because it's like the very last. I think we're in the last few days.
Oh yeah.
Go to teespring.com/CR100 to get yourself a Coda Radio hoodie or T-shirt. There's 1 day and 6 hours left.
That is a great design.
Yeah, we got a great design. Coda Radio just at episode 100 episodes in a row, and we have a cool Jupiter Broadcasting swag shirt over at teespring.com/CR100. We got a hoodie, a T-shirt, and a ladies' tee.
Something for everybody.
Go celebrate over at teespring.com/CR100. We've met our limit, so they are shipping 1 day, 6 hours, 57 minutes, and 19 seconds as we record this episode. And with that, I will say thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week.
Bye, Z's. It's the poll action show. I don't know if anyone is ever as excited about a poll as you were that one time in Google Plus, though.
What? What poll? What poll are you talking
The
about?
poll you took a picture of and put in Google Plus and said, I'm pretty excited about this poll.
I don't even remember, Matt.
Oh yes, I remember every poll story there is because I need help apparently.
Well, we need.
That's what bugs me.
I like what the chat room's suggesting: a kernel extension that people patch their kernel with, and then it just becomes like a local loopback device, and you just connect VLC to that local loopback device, which is connected back to our servers using HTML5.
There you go.
Using HTML5.
And we'll just use virtual loopback. Needs more HTML5. That's what.
Yeah, if they could do that in HTML5,
that would be great.
Yeah, that would be really good.
If I could get my life in HTML5.
Yeah,
just frame it.
Hey Matt, I noticed that the other day you mentioned you were watching TV. Is your TV in HTML5, Matt? I hope your TV's in HTML5.
No, I'm rocking Silverlight on the television set.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I actually pour liquid silver down the tubes and
liquid silver. No, you're not supposed to light silver, Matt. I think you misunderstood.
Don't make. I don't like boobs and my sci-fi mixed in the same thing. It just doesn't work for me.
What the hell's the matter with you?
I like it separate. I like
Why? Because you want to be able to watch with your wife around?
That and yeah. I mean, she doesn't care.
I mean, no, exactly. That's my point. So, dude, I think you are going about this with the wrong approach, my friend. Because
get the wife more into
Dude, it is guilt-free booby watching. What is the matter with you?
This is true.
It is guilt-free. Like, you get to watch. It is sanctioned booby watching. I cannot believe you. You need to appreciate what you have.
Booby watching,
you need to appreciate what you've got. Man, there are men that would be desperate to be in your position.